Huh? Hey, we'll see you now, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya wa mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Allahumma zidna 'ilman innaka anta 'alimul hakim. Allahumma ij'al hadhihi muhadara hujjatan lana la hujjatan 'alayna ya rabbil 'alamin. Amma ba'd. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start. The name of the class is what? A to Z, Ramadan, or fasting. So today, we're in the month of Sha'ban, which is the month after Ramadan, correct? Sir? Sha'ban is a month after Ramadan, right? Before Ramadan. How many months before Ramadan is Sha'ban? One. That means Ramadan is when? Next month. Excellent. So we're going to be covering a book, since Abu Sajid is teaching Minhaj al-Salikin, which is a book of fiqh, mukhtasar, a summarized version of fiqh in preparation for the month of Ramadan. So what we're going to be doing, inshallah ta'ala, is also covering the same subject matter, but we're going to cover it from way of hadith. The hadith you can find in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. It's a book called Umdat al-Ahkam. Umdat al-Ahkam. We have copies of it here. If anybody wants a copy of it, the English and the Arabic. Before we get started, there's an introduction of the book Umdat al-Ahkam. Has anyone ever heard this book, Umdat al-Ahkam? Huh? What is it? This is my copy. Okay. But you can take it, though.
Oh, not that you were putting it.
Nah, they got some in the back, inshallah. They're going to bring them out. What is Umdat al-Ahkam? Does anyone know what that book is about? All right. So Umdat al-Ahkam is a book, if you want to translate it roughly, it's the mother of rulings. It's a smaller than Bulugh al-Maram, which is bigger than that. But this book here, it comprises of book or ahadith from Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Now, we're going to cover this course, in this class, inshallah ta'ala, according to the madhab of Imam Ahmed. However, we're going to mention some of the positions of Imam Ahmed and maybe some other positions, but for the most part, we're going to be covering the fiqh of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. This book, Umdat al-Ahkam, was compiled by an author. His name is Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. Anytime you guys cover or go through a book, it's always important to know who the author was, when he died, etc. I'm sure no one knows when he died. Or do we? First of all, has anyone ever heard of him? Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. So then it's important, inshallah ta'ala, as we continue to study classical texts in Islam, it's also very important that we know who the authors of the works that you're studying. The same way, if you guys read any book, does anyone here read books? What type of books do you read? Any book, right? Right. Huh? No. I mean any books that are not Islamic books. Did anybody read any books that are not Islamic? MashaAllah. Nah, no, wow. So you read books that are not Islamic books, right? Good. It's important to know who the author is. What's the benefit of knowing who the author of a book is? Oh, that's good. He said, know if he's qualified to speak on the subject matter. That's good. What else? What's another reason? Because when a person authors a book, they're giving you their brain. They're putting their brain on a piece of paper, and you're reading it. And if you don't know who the author is, you're drinking their thoughts and how they process information, and you're regurgitating it sometimes, especially if you find it to be a good book. So it's always very important to understand the mindset of the author of the book that you're reading. When you do that, it gives you the ability to process the information in a certain lens. I'll give you an example. When we studied in the university, books of usul al-fiqh, there's certain authors that it's important that we understand their background in terms of how they believed in Allah, because how they believed in Allah, it crept into their works when they're going over Islamic subjects. Likewise, when you're reading any book of a person, it's always important to know the author so you can understand their belief system and how they process information. Right? Do some small research on that. At any event, Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, he's from the ulama of the past, sound aqidah, and he was sound in fiqh, and he also followed the path of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal when it came to his school of thought, or school of learning Islamic jurisprudence. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start with his chapter that he compiled for Umdat al-Ahkam, Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting. Before we start talking about fasting, we need to know what it is first. What is fasting? No one knows. To refrain from? So fasting means to refrain from doing haram stuff. Okay. Somebody want to add to that? Go ahead, Sheikh. Refraining from eating and drinking. What else? Anything else? Yes. Huh? Refrain from cursing. That's good. That's good. What else? Do what by getting closer to it? No. What is fasting? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Right. We're gonna build up to it, right? The scholars of Islam, they say that fasting is rub'ul iman. It says 1/4 of iman. What are they getting that from? The brother said fasting, not eating, not cursing, etc. Right? They say it's rub'ul iman, 1/4 of iman. Where does that come from? There's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said, "As-sawmu nisfu sabr." As-sawmu nisfu sabr, meaning fasting is half of patience. That's a hadith. Fasting is half of patience. And then they say, "Was-sabru nisful iman," and patience is half of iman. Fasting is half of patience, and patience is half of iman. So then, fasting is 1/4 of iman. Did I lose anybody? Make sense? Right. So then, we're going to mention two different definitions of fasting. One linguistic definition and one Sharia definition, or one legislative definition. The first definition of fasting is al-imsak. What is imsak? In Arabic, imsak is like to hold something. Yamsik, to hold. So linguistically, fasting means to refrain or to hold back, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now we're going to mention the word fasting, how we can find it in the Quran, and what did it mean. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Maryam, فَقُولِي إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا. He said they made an oath to Allah that they will not speak. لَا أُكَلِّمَ النَّاسِ. In this case here, fasting meant what? Not to what? So then they are refraining from speaking. That makes sense? Another definition of how else we use the term fast, mean to hold something. There's a statement where it says, Samat al-khayl. Samat al-khayl. Al-khayl is a horse. Samat here, it means to hold the horse. So the horse won't what? Run. Samat al-khayl, that means to hold it. So now here we found two different meanings of fasting, but it don't have to do it not fasting the way we understand fasting. So in the first ayah, fasting was meant not eating, or I'm sorry, not speaking. And this next example, fasting, the term fasting was used to mean what? To hold something, to hold a horse in particular. طيب. Another meaning of fasting, صامت الريح. صامت الريح, meaning the wind stopped blowing. So we have three different meanings of the word psalm from som. One not speaking, one to hold something back like a horse in particular, and one the wind stopped blowing. That's the linguistic meaning. Now we're going to move on to the legislative meaning of the term fasting. Now, there are 3 parts to it, or 4 parts to the definition of fasting. I want to see who can fill them in and what they mean. All right? So, shar'an, imsakun an asha maqsusatan. So the first thing is, the first part of fasting legislatively, the definition that we need to know in order for us to practice this aspect of our religion, it says, imsakun an asha maqsusatan. So we are refraining from specific things. Like what? What are those specific things? Maqsusatan. What is that? What did you say? Food. Good. Drink. What else? That's it? You shouldn't. Music. But food, drink. They're very specific things, though. That's included, huh? Intercourse. What else? Anything else? Anything else? I'm sorry? Anything displeasing? Yes, but in general, when we mention fasting, these are the things that are predominantly mentioned. Food, drink, intercourse. What else? But all those are, yes, but specifically here, is it possible for a person to fast? No. Is it possible for a person to fast and they backbite during the daytime of Ramadan? Does that nullify their fast? No. So then we're talking about things that are specific that a person does, that if you do these things, it will nullify your fast. In general, and we're going to learn more, but in general, we're going to stick to food, drink, intercourse for now. Okay? So it says, imsakun an asha maqsusatan. Refraining from specific things. These are the specific things they're talking about that falls into the category of fasting. Fi zamanin makhsusan, during a specific time period. What is that time period? He says between the adhan of Fajr and the adhan of Maghrib. Does that make sense? Huh? Good. From Maghrib from Fajr to Maghrib. What are we doing during those times? Between Fajr and Maghrib. What happens during that time or during that time period? What are we doing? We're fasting. What is fasting? We're fasting from what? Food, drink, and intercourse in general. Right? So then it says, imsakun an asha maqsusatan. Then we are staying away from specific things. Food, drink, and intercourse. Fi zamanin makhsusan, during a specific time. What's the specific time? From when to when? From Fajr. This is right before Fajr until Maghrib. طيب. Min shakhsin makhsusan, from a specific person. Who are these specific people that have to fast? What kind of Muslims? Oh, so that's good. He said Muslims, right? That's one part. So write that down. The first one is a Muslim. All Muslims, some Muslims, tall Muslims, short Muslims. Which Muslims? Some Muslims. Like, which Muslims? Because right now we're trying to define, you see all these brothers here, who would have to fast? Let somebody else help you. They have intellect. So then who does that exclude? The one that's not sane, mumtaz. So the person has to have aql, intellect, mumtaz. What else? Of age. What is of age? They have to be Islamic puberty. Good. What else? A woman that's not on her menses. What else? A woman that's not pregnant is a difference of opinion. It depends. We'll talk about that later on. If a woman is pregnant, it depends. But if she has postpartum bleeding, then she falls into the category of the woman on her mens. What else? Is that it? That's different. Right? We're talking about who is the fast obligatory on. Right? It says shaksin makhsus, a specific person. Right now, we're trying to narrow down who those specific Muslims are. Who has to fast? So any Muslim that's able to fast. So if a woman is on her meds and she's able, why isn't she able to fast? One test, because it's not permissible for her to fast. So then, in this case, we want to know who those specific Muslims are. So here, we find that the Muslim that can fast here is the one that has intellect, the one that reaches Islamic age of puberty. What else? They're sane. They're of age. What else? Anything else? They're not on their meds. They're not having postpartum bleeding, etc. So in general, those are the people that must fast. Okay? So the brother said, well, what about the person that's traveling? As we'll learn, these are the general rules. As we cover these ahadith, we're going to learn more about who these rules apply for, when there are exceptions and when there are not exceptions. Make sense? Right. Biniyatin maqsusatin. The fourth one is biniyatin maqsusatin, so that they have a specific intention. What is the intention? What is that niyatin maqsus? What is a specific intention? This is important. What is that specific attention or intention? What is it? When? So the scholars of Islam, they differ with two positions here. In the month of Ramadan, some of the ulama say that in the beginning of Ramadan, you can make the intention to fast for 30 days during the month of Ramadan. Other ulama say, rather, that person should have that intention every day. So for example, if we know Ramadan is tomorrow, our intention is, we make our intentions now for fasting in the morning, and like this every day. Every day. Understand? So then, we learned that the definition of fasting comprises of how many parts? 4 parts. What are the 4 parts? The first part, a person is refraining from specific things during a specific time, from a specific person, with a specific intention. Those 4 things. Is that clear? Next question. Some Islamic history. It's important to notice. When was fasting legislated for the Muslims to fast? When? What year? Question. Was it legislated for the Muslims to fast in Mecca or was it in Medina? Let's start with that. Mecca or Medina? Medina, Mumtaz. So fasting was legislated in Medina when? The first year, the second year, third year, fourth year? Second year, Mumtaz. So then, the second year from the Hijrah, and this is a ijma' from the ulama, meaning it's a consensus from the scholars of the past that this is when fasting became legislated, during the second year after the Hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next question. How many Ramadans did the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam fast? Who said 1? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam only fast 1 Ramadan? That's what you're saying? Okay. Anyone else? No Google searches. 11? Close. Who said 10? Closer. 9. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he fasted 9 Ramadans. He fasted 9 Ramadans. Now, before we get into the hadith, we want to speak about days and nights and make sure we understand this. We go over this every year. The day precedes the night, correct? You said yes, right? Right. The day precedes the night, correct? No, Mumtaz. Then the night precedes the day, right? Okay, what does that look like? What's today's date? In Sha'ban. Today is the 2nd of Sha'ban? Mumtaz. So then, if we agree that yesterday, meaning earlier today, was the 2nd of Sha'ban, if everyone agreed with that date, that earlier today, before Maghrib, it was the 2nd of Sha'ban, right? When Maghrib comes in, it becomes what? The 3rd, yes, the 3rd of Sha'ban. And then tomorrow morning would be what? The 4th, right? Who said the 4th? Raise your hand. Tomorrow during the day will be what? The 3rd. Good. So I don't want to confuse anyone. I just want to make sure everyone's paying attention. The night precedes the day. So right now, if we say tonight, right now is the 3rd of Sha'ban. That means all the way up after Fajr, all day tomorrow is what? The 3rd. When does it become the 4th? Maghrib. And Maghrib becomes the 4th of Sha'ban. So then, the night precedes the day. The night comes first, then the day. Is that clear? Mumtaz. So now we want to start the first hadith. And it's important because we're going to come back to revisit that statement. The first hadith, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقدموا رمضان بصوم يوم ولا يومين إلا رجلا كان يصوم صوما فليصمه. In this hadith, I don't know if anyone has it in English, but we can print this out, inshallah. Umdat al-Ahkam. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, لا تقدموا رمضان بصوم يوم ولا يومين إلا رجلا كان يصوم صوما فليصومه. An-Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, no one should fast the month of Ramadan 1 or 2 days before it unless this is something that you normally do. What does that mean? What do you guys understand from this hadith? Mondays and Thursdays and the right days. So then why did the Prophet ﷺ, well, you said Mondays and Thursdays on the right. There's other days too. What are some other days that we could fast? Every other day. The every other day fast is known as the fast of what? Soma Dawood. Ahsant. So then, why is it hated to do that? What's the reason? And then why did the Prophet ﷺ say, if this is something that you usually do, فَلْيَصُمْهُ, then fast it? So let's look at this hadith. First, we're going to look at the language of the hadith, right? An-Nabi ﷺ, he said, لَا تَقَدَّمُوا. لَا تَقَدَّمُوا here, in Arabic, this is called a la nahiya, meaning Allah, An-Nabi ﷺ is commanding us not to do something. Any command in Islam is 2 types of commands. Well, it's more than that, but here there are 2 types of talab. There's a request to do something, and then there's a request not to do something. Did that make sense? In this hadith, An-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, لا تقدموا رمضان بصوم يوم ولا يومين. Do not fast, do not precede the month of Ramadan with 1 or 2 days fasting. And then he says, and he makes an exception, illa, except for the man, kana yasumuhu soman falyasumhu, unless you are a person that normally fasts during those times. Why is that? Why can't a person fast 1 or 2 days before the month of Ramadan? What do you think the wisdom of that is? Is there any wisdom behind it? So remember, Anybody who studied with me always mention that rulings are of two types. Rulings are of how many types? Two. إما أن يكون تعبدي or mu'allal. Meaning, if we say ta'abudi, meaning there's no reason, we don't know the reason for the legislation, so we say we hear and we obey, right? But if we know the reason for the hadith, then we say that the hadith is mu'allal, meaning there's a reason for the legislation. This hadith here, do the scholars of Islam give a reason for the legislation? They do. Why would the Prophet ﷺ say don't fast 1 or 2 days before? There's numerous reasons. From them, some of the ulama say خوف من أن يزاد في رمضان ما ليس منه. Some of them say that the reason, one of the wisdoms or one of the reasons why the Prophet ﷺ would tell us not to fast this day is because fear that someone will add something to Ramadan that's not from it. Meaning fast a day from Ramadan and there's no distinction between them. Another reason, some of the scholars mention, if you fast 1 or 2 days before Ramadan, the same thing, you're not making a distinction between the fast in Sha'ban and the fast in Ramadan. You're just making them all consecutively. Another reason, they say that if a person fasts before Ramadan, it would give that person some weakness going into Ramadan. These are all reasons that some of the ulama mention for fasting or not to fast during that time. However, when the Prophet ﷺ, we want to mention some speech from Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali when he says, "Siyam akhir Sha'ban thalathatu ahwal." There are 3 conditions or 3 reasons why a person would fast during the end of the month of Sha'ban. There are 3 reasons that he mentions why a person would fast during the end of Sha'ban. What could it be? Does anyone know? What's a reason? Prepare yourself? No. Making up. Let's say you had days that you missed, and you only have 2 or 3 days left before Ramadan, then you must do what? You must make those days up. Does that make sense? All right. What's another reason? Maybe those are days let's say you fast Monday and Thursday, and Ramadan is coming on Tuesday, and that's your sunnah, you fast Mondays and Thursdays. In this case, this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Then fast those days if that's the days you normally fast. Mumtaz. What's another one? Let's say you fast the white days, and the white days precede Ramadan is something that you usually do. So Nabi ﷺ says, don't leave off those days, fast those days. طيب. Anyone else? طيب. Any questions about that? MashaAllah, the Sheikh has some copies. Yes. I got a question. How would you, the hadith says 1 or 2 days before Ramadan. The question is, how would you know it's 1 day before Ramadan? In a month, how many days are in a month? 29 days. So if it's 29 days in a month, it's always going to be 29 days in every month in Islam. With a possibility of there being how many days? 30. Excellent. So, how would we know if it's 1 day? I think there's some sisters over there too. How would we know that it's going to be 1 or 2 days before Ramadan? How would we even know? Let's say, for example, today is the 29th day, right before Maghrib, and we go look for the hilal. If we see it, then if we see the hilal, then tomorrow is what? The next month. And if we don't see it, then we what? Then we continue. No, we don't fast. We continue the month that we're in. Does that make sense? Did I lose anybody? I lost you. No problem. Huh? All right. So let's say right now is, what did we say the day was? The day was the 2nd, 3rd, right? The 3rd. So tomorrow after Fajr, the whole day tomorrow is going to be the 3rd, right? Right before Fajr, people are going to go out and look and see if they see the moon. If you see the moon, then the next day after Maghrib, it will be what? The what? The 4th. Well, let's assume it's the end of the month. If it's the end of the month and we go the whole day, we got to look the night before, or meaning right before Maghrib. If you see the moon, then it switches to the next month if it's the end of the month. Yeah, forget the 4th. We're talking about the end of the month. There's 29 days. The 29th day when Maghrib hits, is it going to be the next month or the 1st, or is it going to be the 30th? That's the debate. Does that make sense? That's the point of contention. When you go out, you're looking for the hilal. When you see the hilal, it represents a new month. If you don't see the hilal, then you continue the previous month, only for 30 days. Okay? This is very important for the next hadith that we're about to cover. Any questions about that one? Any questions? None. طيب ممتاز. The next hadith. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا رأيتموه فصوموا وإذا رأيتموه فأفطروا فإن غم عليكم فاقدروا له. I don't even know how they translate that. And the second hadith, this was also Abdullah ibn Umar. There's a mistake here in this English. Yeah, it says Abu Hurairah, but the narrator was Abdullah ibn Umar. Anyway, it says in English, it says, start fasting after you have seen it, and end the fasting when you see it. If it is cloudy and cannot be seen, then estimate its sighting. We're going to talk about that hadith. The first thing is, this hadith, it's important who narrated this hadith. This hadith was reported by Abdullah ibn Umar. What do we know about Abdullah ibn Umar? He was the son of Umar who? Umar ibn Khattab. Abdullah ibn Umar, he was from the companions that if he saw the Prophet ﷺ standing in a certain place, he would want to go stand there and put his feet where the Prophet ﷺ placed his feet. This is how much emphasis he put on following the way of the Prophet ﷺ and whatever he could do. So he says, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا رأيتم. He said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, if you see, إذا رأيتموه, إذا رأيتموه, if you see the hilal. طيب. He's talking to his companions. So during this time, this could be the end of the month, or this could be the end of Ramadan. This could be in the end of Sha'ban, or this hadith could also be mentioned during the end of Ramadan. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ, if you see it, فَصُومُوا. Meaning, if you see the moon you go out on the 29th night to look for the hilal, the moon, the crescent moon. If you see it, then fast. And in another part of this hadith, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ, if you see it, the crescent moon again at the end of the month, فَأَفْطِرُوا, then break your fast, meaning Ramadan has come to an end, it is now the Eid. This hadith also indicates the impermissibility of fasting during the day of the Eid. In Islam, in Arabic in particular, specifically in the Quran and the Sunnah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us commands, the origin is that those commands are obligatory. The origin is that those commands are obligatory. That means wajib. That means you must do them. So here, when the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ فَصُومُوا, this means that fasting has become wajib. When you see the hilal, when you see the crescent moon, it becomes obligatory for you to fast. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَمُوهُ, and if you see it, فَأَفْطِرُوا, and if you see it, meaning the crescent moon, then you must break your fast. This here is a proof to show that it is not permissible to fast during the Eid. It's not permissible for a Muslim to fast during the Eid. Wadah? Clear? طيب. So then the Prophet ﷺ, He says, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَاقْتُرُوا لَهُ. This is the point of contention here. This is where the scholars of Islam differ. It says, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَاقْتُرُوا لَهُ. If it becomes cloudy or raining and you can't see, then according to the school of Imam Ahmed, is that you should fast anyway. What does that mean? Let's say we go out on the 29th day. Now Maghrib comes, we want to go out and look for the hilal, right? But we can't see because it's what? It's cloudy. It's drizzling. It's foggy, right? In that case, according to the school of Imam Ahmed, start that day as, meaning the next day will be the first day of Ramadan. First day of Ramadan, right? Right now we're trying to figure out when Ramadan starts. So we're on the 29th of Sha'ban. So you go out, you look in the clouds, you say, man, where is the hilal? We can't see it because it's cloudy. In this case, according to the school of Imam Ahmed, you fast that day, meaning the next day up, you fast. Some of the ulama, they say, la, why would we fast those days? This here is called Yom HaShak. This is a day of doubt. This is a doubtful day. Why we can't see it? Because it's cloudy. So it's doubtful, right? But according to the school of Imam Ahmed, they say, la, we fast this day because of the hadith says, فَقْتُرُوا لَهُ. When it says to estimate, they say this word in Arabic means ضَيِّقُ, right? ضَيِّقُ means to make something tight, to make something tight. So they say, well, where do you get that from? Where do you get that from? So they use the ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Talaq, where Allah says, وَمَنْ قُدِّرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ وَمَنْ قُدِّرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ. Whoever's sustenance is restricted. So they say this word here means restricted. So instead of making Sha'ban 30 days, we only make Sha'ban 29 days because it has a cloud there. However, the majority of scholars hold the position that this will also be considered the day of doubt. So you don't fast that day. So pay attention. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because you may be in a place where people follow a particular madhab or whatever school of thought. That's Hanbali, and they hold this position because this is the position of the madhab, even though it might be the minority position of many of the scholars of al-Islam. If you're around people and they say, no, we're starting our fast this day because it's cloudy, they say, we also found Ibn Umar doing it from the companions, because you'll find ulama from the Sahaba doing the same thing. The reason why we mention this is so that if you happen to be around a group of Muslims and this is the position that they take, then we don't say, brother, sister, this is haram, this is what it is, etc., etc. This is a position, a strong position that some of the companions held. Even the likes of Imam Ahmed and others held this position. However, it is not the majority position. This is why I'm mentioning both of them. So just a quick recap on this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, if you see the hilal or the crescent moon, then you fast. And if you see the hilal or the crescent moon at the end of the month, then you break your fast. And then he says, if it's cloudy or if it's rain in the sky and you can't see, فَقْتُرُوا لَهُ. فَقْتُرُوا لَهُ, many of the ulama say this means complete. Completed the 30 days. And then another position says, no, this doesn't mean complete. This means shorten it. And this is where the scholars differ. They use the same hadith. And the reason why I mention this is because whoever is blessed to study Islam, you'll learn that many scholars of Islam, differences of opinion come from authentic hadith and our understandings of them. Differences of opinion, they come from authentic hadith and the various scholars' understandings of them. Is that clear? And we should be careful, when you learn. And one of the mistakes that beginner learners do when they study Islam is that we study Islam one way. We go through a book of hadith and we say, oh, this is the only position. This is what it is. And if you see someone in opposition to that, we're quick to speak against them. Brothers, sisters, haram. The hadith says this. Hadith says that. So the benefit of studying knowledge of Islam is rafa jahl an nafsik. First thing is to remove the ignorance from yourself. Right? Remove the ignorance from yourself. It's not to take the information and run and try to teach everybody around you. It's not time for that. The time is for you to learn, implement in your own life, first and foremost, then your family, etc., etc. Any questions about that hadith? Index.
So would it be, you say like there's difference of opinion that came from would it be like whoever you study under it's kind of like more which way you would go?
Maybe. So the brother said, you notice how there's a difference of opinion in Imam Ahmed's school, right? So he said, does it matter who you study under? It does. It does. If you study, let's say nowadays, you study with a scholar and they teach you this. In the very beginning, they're not going to teach you this. They're not going to teach you the difference of opinion. They're going to give you one position. If they hold the position, faqtiru lahu means to make it short. That's the only position you're going to know as a beginner student. I'll give you an example. There's a book called Umdat al-Fiqh from Ibn al-Qudama, Muwafiq ad-Din Ibn al-Qudama al-Maqdisi. He's actually the cousin of Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. They were born the same year, 541. Abdul Ghani, the author of this book, he died in the year 600, and Muwafiq ad-Din died in the year 620. But they're cousins, right? Where was I going with that? The thing is, because they're cousins, they both studied fiqh. They have their own students. They have Ibn al-Qudama, Muwafiq ad-Din. He has a book called Umdat al-Fiqh. Umdat al-Fiqh. This book is a basic beginner level of fiqh book. Some of them, they have hadith in it, and sometimes you have statements. Even the book that Saeed is teaching, the Imam, he's teaching the book Minhaj al-Salikin. If I'm not mistaken, it may not be filled with hadith. It may be filled with just statements. Maybe I think Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di may have mentioned some hadith in it. But in general, the beginning books of fiqh, you won't find much hadith or much evidence to support anything. And the reason for that is to get the beginner student accustomed to learning and understanding issues. I'll give you an example. If I'm teaching you how to drive, say you don't know how to drive a car. If I tell you this is the steering wheel, this is the brake, you're not going to go, well, how you know it's a steering wheel? What's the proof that that's a steering wheel? Right? You're not going to do all that in the beginning because you don't have any information. You have nothing. You have an empty sheet of paper. So in the beginning is when you study fiqh, you start off with an empty sheet of paper. The ulama, they're going to give you, all right, take this, take this, take this. You're not at the level to even ask questions because you don't know what to ask. Once you get that small foundation and then you go over it again, then you might say, well, why is the steering wheel placed on the left side of the car as opposed to the right? Why do we got to stop it? What is the yellow light for? Why is that there? Proceed with caution. Why is it made that way? You get to that point once you get the foundation. Once you even know what a yellow light is. You don't even know what it is. Right? You understand what I'm saying? And this is how you study fiqh. In the beginning, when you study fiqh, it's information. You don't even know what it is. You just take it, take it, take it. And then when you get to a level where you say, okay, why is this? Well, there's a hadith to support. They're like, oh, mashallah. Then how come they do that? Because they have another hadith that says that. Well, which one is correct? That's a whole nother level. You understand? There's always levels. So don't think because you study this here, khalas, I'm good. I got fiqh all figured out. It's not like that. It takes time. It's a mountain. It's a whole ocean. Right. So the next one, I think we're going to stop with that. Naktafi bihada, inshallah. We're going to stop at that hadith, and then we'll pick up next week, inshallah ta'ala. My goal is to have this finished before Ramadan, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. So we may actually, depending on what the schedule looks like, we may actually do this more than once throughout the course of the week. We'll let everyone know as we proceed, inshallah. We'll open up the floor to questions, inshallah. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
So, since the end of Ramadan, 29th night, it's cloudy. Some people will fast the next day, some people will not. Is it better to fast?
Mumtaz. He asked a question. He said, what if it's the end of Ramadan? It's cloudy outside. Some people say the hold on fast and the break. What do we do if, in this case, and subhanAllah, the ulama mentioned this. During the time of the Salaf, during the companions, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they traveled. So one of the ulama, one of them, I believe they were in Hijaz, like the Saudi range, and then I think they traveled to Sham, to Shams, which would be like Syria. At any event, during that time, one group of the Muslims were fasting, the other one wasn't, because they saw the moon and the other ones didn't see the moon. And one of the Sahaba was traveling, right? The fiqh here is that what you do is you eat when the people eat and you fast when the people fast. You eat when the people eat and you fast when they fast. Does that make sense? If you're with a group of people and they're fasting, then you fast with them. If they're breaking their fast. Now the issue now comes in is, well, what if you travel somewhere for the Eid and you know you only got 28 days of fasting? Do you break when everybody else break? That's a different conversation now, because now you have to complete a minimum of what? 29 days. That's a question for another time now. You're still traveling. So if it depends on the intention of the one. If you're traveling and you want to break your fast, then you break your fast. But if you want to fast, you can fast. And we're going to cover that in other parts of this book, inshallah. 541. What do you mean?
541, he died.
600. It's 59. He was 59 years old. And then his cousin, Muwafiq ad-Din, he died 20 years after that. So he died at 79. And they were both born the same year. Can you imagine that? His cousin, they both from the ulama. They come from good stock. Any other questions? Any other questions? Khalas, we want to close out with that. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Close this.